And record that now. All right. And without any further ado, I'd like to welcome today's MC and Chair of Alaska Business Forum, Ephraim. Ephraim, welcome.
Hey, thank you so much, Betsy. It's always a pleasure to get to host these events. I'm particularly excited about today, and so thank you everybody for joining us, and thank you to all of our guests here who are going to be presenting today. I'm Ephraim Freilich, the chair of the Alaska Business Forum, and lucky for you all, your MC for today. I'm a born and raised Alaskan who's been stuck here in Seattle for about 3 years. But plotting my return back to Alaska, and we just actually closed on our first home back in my hometown of Juneau yesterday. And nobody ever told me how terrible that process is, but I'm coming out the other side, feeling good, feeling poor. Today, we're hearing about a growing industry in Alaska, which I'm very excited about, the mariculture industry. We're hearing from experts at the state level and all the way to family-run mariculture farms. And like I said, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart. I truly believe that mariculture is a key to Alaska's future. This really is, one of those next steps to diversifying our ocean economy and moving towards a sustainable Alaska. But before we get started, I want to thank Alaska Airlines, our series sponsor. My friend Scott Haverstad will make a few remarks. So Scott, welcome.
Ephraim, thank you. And it's great to hear you're coming back to Alaska in Juneau, but you got to know, my hometown, the K-High Kings, were so much better than the Juneau Douglas Bears. I mean, we dominate. I mean, we're fish. Hello. I mean, that's what we're talking about today, so it's just obvious. But thanks for the opportunity to just give a few remarks and give my good friend Ephraim a bad time. But Scott Haverstad, Director of Sales and Community Marketing with Alaska Airlines, located here in Alaska. Lots of exciting stuff going on with Alaska Airlines. I don't know if you guys have seen, but we just recently announced 2 new destinations out of Seattle. Come this summer, we'll be serving Cleveland. I understand it rocks. People enjoy the music. It's a great place to go. Also, we're going to start service back into Miami on June 16th. So if you have the need to get to the Keys, do some tarpon fishing down there, we are your nonstop flight out of Seattle. On the 19th of this month, we're going to start service to Belize out of Seattle and LA. I just booked my family last night on the 20th. There's extra seats if somebody needs some sun. There's also extra seats on the 19th, so don't hesitate. And one last thing. This is a sales pitch, right? We just announced we launched MVP Gold 100K. So those of you who like to travel a lot, there's another tier to start working towards. That'll launch on January of 2022. So we're excited about that. And lastly, the Resource Development Council here in Alaska generally hosts their in-person convention middle of November. That convention, if you hadn't heard, has gone virtual. It's November 17th. So you're very interested in learning about the other resource industries in Alaska, fishing, seafood, timber, mining. That's a great way to catch up on that one-day conference. And you can find more about that at RDC or akrdc.org. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ephraim or Betsy. I'm not sure who gets it.
I'll take it back, Scott, and thank you very much. Couple notes, and one is I don't think I ever lost to the K-High Kings in my long and storied sports career at Juneau Douglas High School, so I'd like that on the record. And second is that Cleveland and Belize are my top 2 vacation destinations in the world, so I'm really excited about that as well. So first, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Sam Raybun. Sam is a lifelong Alaskan who I had the pleasure of working with when I worked for the governor of Alaska. And Sam was at ADF&G. He's a wealth of knowledge. He's a lifelong Alaskan who worked in salmon fisheries enhancement and mariculture for over 35 years. Currently, Sam is the director of the Division of Commercial Fisheries at the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. He was a member of the Alaska Governor's Mariculture Task Force and is now a member of the Alaska Mariculture Alliance, or AMA. He has worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and Alaskan regional and non-regional aquaculture associations at over 14 hatchery facilities in positions ranging from technician to general manager. So we're really lucky, and I'm excited to have Sam here today. And Sam, I'll kick it over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Ephraim. Glad to be here. Can you hear me? Okay. In the interest of time, I'll just jump right into my slideshow if that's what we're supposed to do. I think what I need to do is share my screen. Are you getting it? Okay. How's it? Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to talk about Mariculture, Alaska. I'm Sam Raybun, and as Efren said, I'm the director of the Division of Commercial Fisheries for the Alaska Department of Fish and Game. I am a lifelong Alaskan, and I've been interested in mariculture since about the mid-1980s when I did some research on giant kelp and Sitka, and I also assisted with drafting the first Alaska Mariculture, or excuse me, the Alaska Oyster Growers Manual. After receiving my bachelor's degree, I was invited to participate in a kelp mariculture training program in Japan. And in the late 1990s, I worked on an oyster farm in Southeast Alaska in my spare time with an eye towards operating my own farm one day. As Efren said, I served as a member of the Alaska Mariculture, or Alaska Governor's Mariculture Task Force from its inception in 2016 to the sunset this past summer. And now I'm a member of the newly formed Alaska Mariculture Alliance, which will continue the work of promoting and growing the mariculture industry in Alaska. So I was asked to provide a brief 30,000-foot overview of mariculture in Alaska. So I'll touch on what mariculture is, the ADF&G's role in mariculture, the state's guidance and support for mariculture, where the industry is at now, and what I think it needs to continue to grow. So what is mariculture? Simply put, it's marine aquaculture, or the culture of marine organisms. Mariculture includes both aquatic farming, and you'll hear me refer to it as aquatic farming quite a bit today, but it also includes rehabilitation or enhancement of wild fisheries. Aquatic farming is the culturing of marine organisms under positive control to benefit private business. The product is owned from start to finish, or seed to sale. This is akin to land-based farming or agriculture, where animals are livestock and plants are crops. Rehabilitation and enhancement is the culturing of marine organisms for release into the wild to benefit wild capture fisheries. Only aquatic farming is legal in Alaska at this time. In Alaska, the farming of finfish is specifically prohibited by law. We always try to make that very clear whenever we talk about mariculture, because it's a really sensitive issue here. ADF&G's role in mariculture begins with our mission statement, which states in part that we manage the use and development of the aquatic resources in the best interest of the economy and in a manner that's consistent with the sustained yield principle. There are many layers of mariculture oversight in Alaska, and ADF&G is just one part. ADF&G has specific authority over the transport and possession of live organisms. So we issue three main permit types: aquatic farm operation permits, stock transport permits, and stock acquisition permits. The Department of Natural Resources, one of our sister agencies, has authority over state land and water and issues aquatic farm leases for the use of state tidelands out to 3 miles. And the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation is responsible for both certifying growing waters at the farm site and for food safety and sanitation at processing and sale to the public. When the 1988 Aquatic Farm Act was passed, the state placed sideboards on the industry. Alaska is a common property resource state, which includes our lands and waters. And so the private use or impacts to these must be in the state's best interest. As you saw on a previous slide, sustained yield is directed in the ADF&G mission statement. It's also in Alaska's Constitution and is included in state statutes that guide the ADF&G. ADF&G employs a precautionary approach to ensure sustainability when addressing uncertainty or making decisions with limited data. And finally, statute states that traditional and existing uses of sites and resources will have priority over aquatic farming or mariculture. And this is where common property and sustained yield are included in Alaska's Constitution, Article 8, Section 3, and Section 4. So ADF&G applies these principles when it reviews an application for an aquatic farm or hatchery. And these are the main criteria that we look at. The site must be suitable for the species proposed to be cultured. The proposed farm operation cannot conflict significantly with existing uses. The proposed farm operation may not negatively impact existing fish and wildlife or their habitat significantly. The proposed farm plan is feasible. And the proposed farm site can't contain a significant wild population of the shellfish stock to be cultured. ADF&G takes a precautionary approach when making permitting decisions. For example, where and how kelp broodstock is allowed to be acquired in relation to the farm site in order to minimize risk of genetic or disease impacts on wild populations of aquatic plants. This is just due to lack of information about kelp population structure and distributions and diseases of kelps. So after seeing how restrictive our permitting guidance can appear to people, I'm really glad to be able to say that the state of Alaska supports and encourages mariculture development. Many people, this is one of my favorite things, many people are surprised to learn that Article 8, Section 15 of Alaska's Constitution, which states there is no exclusive right of fishery, was amended in 1972 to allow for both limited entry fisheries and for the efficient development of aquaculture. It's enshrined in our Constitution. The current and past governor have embraced mariculture and have provided support through the Mariculture Task Force, through legislation, and through economic development teams that they've created. Governor Dunleavy has made mariculture development a priority of his administration and has stated publicly that he wants Alaska to be the mariculture capital of the world. He recently requested designation of federal aquaculture opportunity areas in Alaska's waters, and that decision is still pending. And also recently, the Exxon Valdez Oil Spill Trustees Council, which is made up of many appointees of the governor, approved over $26 million in funding support for a 10-year program of mariculture research and development. And finally, Alaska's Sea Grant program is taking a lead role in research and development, as you'll hear about a little bit later this morning from Dr. Eckert. Now, you've heard me mention the Mariculture Task Force a few times. It was envisioned and promoted by the Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation, or AFDF, in their Alaska Mariculture Initiative. The Mariculture Task Force was created by Governor Walker in February of 2016 and was continued by Governor Dunleavy through June of 21. Of the original 5 priority recommendations, 3 have been accomplished and the other 2 are in progress right now. And this is just a synopsis of the 2018 Alaska Mariculture Development Plan that was produced by the task force. There's a lot to see here, but this document's available online, and I encourage you to take a look at it when you get a chance. A lot of progress was made between the 2018 Alaska Mariculture Development Plan and the 2021 final report of the Mariculture Task Force. The number of permitted farms has increased significantly. Regulatory roadblocks are being removed, and processors and markets are taking an interest in mariculture production in Alaska. The Mariculture Task Force and the AFDF analysis indicate the potential for a $100 million industry. One of the things that Governor Dunleavy asked for was for the task force to set up the framework for an industry-led guiding body and pass off its work to that entity. The Alaska Mariculture Alliance bylaws were adopted at the end of 2020, and it has its first meeting this afternoon. All of these documents can be accessed on AFDF's website, which is afdf.org, easy one to remember. So even though aquatic farming has been legal in Alaska for over 30 years and has the potential to become a $100 million industry or more, it really is still in its infancy. And it had a peak farm gate value of only about $1.6 million recently. But the industry is growing. In 2015, there were 54 farms and 2 hatcheries permitted. In 2020, there were 70 farms and 5 hatcheries permitted. It's important to know that only about half of the issued permits were actively farming in 2020. We won't have the 21 information until after this January. In 21 so far, there are 82 farms and 5 hatcheries permitted. There's a pretty steep growth rate. To clarify, these are issued permits. The number actually farming is quite a bit fewer yet. You can see that half the permits are for shellfish only, but half of the acreage is for kelp farms. Shellfish only includes oysters, little neck clams, gooey ducks, mussels. Combinations include both shellfish and seaweed. and also includes farms that produce just the natural set of aquatic plants, not necessarily cultivation. So there's kind of a lot of nuance there. There's 11 new kelp only operation permits issued in 21, and 2 of them were over 100 acres. So you can see they're very large size. We're starting to grow, not only in number, but in size. The gear for these aren't going to be in the water this season, of course, and we'll have to wait. They'll have to wait until the fall of 22 probably to outplant, and so their harvest won't occur until 23, and we won't have any harvest data reported until January of 24. And here's a breakdown of where the currently permitted aquatic farms are located. This doesn't include the hatcheries. You can see that westward region only accounts for 12% of the permits, but they account for 26% of the acreage due to the larger size of the farms there. And those are mostly kelp farms. Westward includes Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula or the Aleutians. And just for scale, Alaska's pretty big. So this is primarily where our farms are located. Well, it is where our farms are located. They're concentrated along the Gulf of Alaska, primarily in Southeast Alaska to the right, and in South Central, but they've been growing recently in Kodiak and even out on the Alaska Peninsula. You can see a couple dots out there on the left. And there's still 29 more farm permits in progress, and a new application period will open in January. So it's still going. If these 29 are permitted, they'll add significantly to the acreage under cultivation. And I'd like to clarify also that acreage is the on-bottom footprint of the lease. So basically it's the perimeter of the anchoring. The surface footprint is significantly less. It's usually about 35% of the lease site, or lease size, excuse me. This is just another look at those 29 applications pending. And these are in progress anywhere from waiting for additional information to being finalized very soon. And it's also important to note that not all applications become approved permits. Some wind up with too many conflicts and get withdrawn. Parcel sizes can also change with agency recommendations. And sometimes the applicant just changes their mind. Farming is hard work. And remember that the total leased acreage so far is about 1,200 acres. So there's potential to more than double the existing acreage if all of these are issued. And here's where those remaining 29 applications are located. Southeast Alaska continues to see the most interest. Now, what does the industry need to grow as envisioned? The largest challenge with permitting aquatic farms is conflict with other uses and environmental concerns. And these are sometimes either real or perceived. These are collectively referred to as social license. There isn't much that can be done about conflict for space, so we just have to find locations that don't currently have other uses that would be precluded by siting a farm there. Environmental concerns are being addressed with research and best practices. As an aside, I'd like to point out that research so far is showing many positive effects or ecosystem services from mariculture. So there's a lot of benefits from doing it. Another need is capital. New farmers struggle to find the money to start and grow. This is improving, but still a barrier to entry for many. And growing the product is basically the easy part. What do you do with it after it's grown, when it's ready for market? The industry has produced small scale or boutique sales for the most part to date, but it will need processing capacity to truly grow. This could be a really good fit to utilize existing processing infrastructure in the shoulder seasons, for example, if the volume's large enough to make it worthwhile. And of course, somebody needs to buy the products. Shellfish is pretty straightforward, but could always add new product forms. And seaweeds offer a lot of options, from ready to eat like seaweed salads to commodities such as kelp powders and micronutrients, animal feeds, biomass, natural plastics, et cetera, et cetera. That list goes on. And I think my time is about up. I know I went through that pretty quickly. I asked Betsy to make the PDF of this presentation available if anybody wants wants to get a hold of that. But in closing, I feel that mariculture in Alaska is really on the cusp of great things. There are really very few downsides to aquatic farming, and there's a lot of support and energy involved in growing the industry right now. I think it's a really good fit for Alaska, and I'm excited to play, a small part in helping move it forward. If you'd like more information about aquatic farming in Alaska, this slide includes ADF&G's aquaculture section contact information and the website addresses for all of the ADF&G, Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation, and Alaska Sea Grant websites. And with that, I'll say thank you and turn it back over.
Thank you so much, Sam. Really appreciate that. That was enlightening, and it's a, for those engaged in this issue, it's a good kind of reminder of where we're at. But for many others, that was a really helpful groundwork about the Alaska mariculture industry. So thank you so much. Next, we're going to welcome our second speaker, Dr. Ginny Eckert. Dr. Eckert is the director of the Alaska Sea Grant Program at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In addition to her Sea Grant role, Dr. Eckert is a professor in the Fisheries Department at the Juneau Center of the UAF College of Fisheries and Ocean Sciences, or CFOS. Where she teaches and conducts research in marine ecology, mariculture, and fisheries in Alaska. Dr. Eckert is an expert on Alaska's living marine resources and has a distinguished career training the generation of scientists for a variety of career paths and engaging communities and the public in science activities. I've had the good fortune of working with Dr. Eckert on a whole host of Sea Grant things over the years, and it's really, really nice to have you here, Dr. Eckert. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Ephraim. And I'm pretty excited that you're coming back to Juneau. So welcome back. I am part of the University of Alaska Fairbanks, but I'm based in Juneau, which is a great place to be. In fact, all the speakers today are from Juneau. All right, I'm going to share my screen and launch into the presentation. So yeah, so I'm here from the University of Alaska and Alaska Sea Grant, and close that so I can see. And I'm going to talk about how we're working to support mariculture through research, outreach, and training. Sam did a great introduction. Thanks, Sam, to the industry. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the biology and the things that happen in the water. So I thought it'd be good to give you an overview of what's currently farmed in Alaska. So we have Pacific oysters are for sure the big moneymaker. Blue mussels are small and gooey ducks are small, but both of those are currently in, there are farms that are active. And then kelp is this emerging industry. And there are 3 species of kelp that are currently being farmed and marketed: sugar kelp, bull kelp, and ribbon kelp. There are a whole variety of new species, though, that we've done research on that are in development, and I'll talk about some of those research projects. But species that we think have a lot of potential include king crab, sea cucumbers, abalone, little neck clams, cockles, scallops, and then a whole variety of other kelp species. So as Sam already mentioned, the governor's Mariculture Task Force, which I was a part of, set the goal to increase the industry from about $1 million industry to $100 million industry in 20 years. This is very ambitious, but I think it's possible. And they even sort of said, okay, here are the different species. So you can see that they definitely view that oysters and kelp are probably going to be the 2 big money makers in this, but that other species can have an important part as well. The task force also identified that research, outreach, and training are all very essential to growing this industry. And as there are 2 different organizations that are coming out of the task force. One is the Alaska Americulture Alliance that Sam mentioned. The other is the Americulture Research and Training Center, which we at Alaska Sea Grant are very honored to be organizing. Now, this is an umbrella organization. There are many different people that are going to do research and training. And so we're really just that sort of coordinating body to help facilitate, to connect the industry, facilitate researchers, and help get the work done. So now I'm going to chat about the different research projects that are going on and some of the barriers and how we're helping to address some of those barriers to entry into this industry. So one of the things that the task force identified, one of the #1 priorities, was this issue of addressing the issue of seed supply in Alaska. So all the seed is imported from outside hatcheries, and we'd really like to develop in-house the ability to produce seed. So there's a research project going on. A whole different variety of organizations are involved. This involves very close coordination with the industry here. And this is Eric Wyatt from Blue Star Oysters. And he's working on growing different strains of oysters at his, he has a Flupsy. So a Flupsy is a nursery where they grow oysters. So he's growing these different strains of seed and looking at which ones perform well in Alaska. Because certainly we need things that are going to work in Alaska. Sometimes we can import information from other places, but many times we just have to figure out what works in Alaska. There's a lot of research into seaweeds. Dr. Mike Steckel and Dr. Shiri Manzoor are both sort of at the forefront of this. We're really excited. Shiri's a relatively new professor, and Dr. Steckel's been around. He's been trying to work on kelp Miraculture for a really long time and is just so excited now that he's retired that there's so much interest in this industry. And this also highlights great opportunities to engage with students. So here you can see 2 different students from the university that are working on a project, and there have been a whole variety of different projects. At first it was like, well, where do you grow it? What depth do you put it at? What time of year do you put it out? What are the nutrient requirements? And now we're getting more into the more fine scale issues of addressing the different issues in this industry. And these 2 are both very active in that arena. There's quite a bit of work on new species. Abalone and scallops are 2 that NOAA is particularly active and involved in. And here's a picture of Chris Cecil and an Alaska Sea Grant Fellow, Diana Perry. So Alaska Sea Grant has a fellowship program for graduate students that have just finished their degree as the sort of first entry into the world. And these students get to work in an agency, and we've over the years hosted several of these Sea Grant Fellows at NOAA focused on mariculture in the areas of abalone. And as you can see, Diana here helped develop techniques to culture scallops. Another big research program that has been going on for quite some time is the ACRAB program. This is the Alaska King Crab Research, Rehabilitation, and Biology Program. It was created in 2006 as really a grassroots effort, and a whole variety of different organizations have been involved. The university has been a key player in doing much of the research, and the goal here was to assess the feasibility of king crab stock enhancement in Alaska. So we worked to basically figure out, like, how do you grow little baby king crabs, and can we scale this up? The great news is that we can. It can be scaled up. We've done a whole variety of different experiments, outplanting really small king crab, and are able to find them, you know, a year later, which is pretty amazing given that you're putting something out that's, you know, smaller than a penny. There's definitely, you know, new interest in this issue because of the recent closures and major declines in crab fisheries in Alaska. Other species that are in development, sea cucumbers. Here's Charlotte Regular Whitefield, completed her PhD in 2018, and she developed methods to rear sea cucumbers in the hatchery. She used these little plates. I went the wrong way. She used these little plates here, if you can see my screen, and that's where the little juvenile sea cucumbers, which are these little things, they're just so cute. They grow up, and so this was a great advance in identifying how to culture these, and she was the first one that had done this. And then she studied a bunch of other features about the cucumbers as well, and even did some small scale outplanting experiments. And this actually, I should mention, is a good case where in king crab, in the case of sea cucumbers, both of these, the techniques and the research are being developed in order to help facilitate or enhance some of the wild fisheries that are out there. Much of this work has been done at the Ludic Pride Shellfish Hatchery. They've been instrumental in helping develop these culturing techniques for a variety of different shellfish. Other research, and as Sam mentioned, certainly the growing it isn't necessarily the hardest part. Developing products and markets are essential. Alaska Sea Grant hosts and sponsors the Kodiak Seafood and Marine Science Center that's based in Kodiak, where we do quite a bit of work on new product development and developing markets and identifying sort of the economic challenges and opportunities in this industry. So here's a project that Chris has been working on. They've been drying kelp and working with a company that is working to put the kelp into tortillas. In the shape of, your next burrito could be on a kelp tortilla, or potentially there are tortilla chips that they're being developed, snack chips that have dried kelp in them. I'm not sure that makes them healthier though. Alaska Sea Grant has also really helped this industry to connect to consumers. As you heard, the industry is still relatively small and was definitely economically hampered by COVID. The sales declined last year as a result of COVID. So in response to that, Missy Good, who is the Alaska Sea Grant's aquaculture specialist, developed a program called the Shellfish and Seaweed Growers Project with the goal to connect Alaskan consumers to Alaskan grown product and to create awareness in this industry. One of the things that she did at Alaska, with a lot of other people being involved, is she hosted an online seaweed and shellfish festival. And this was held in May. Much of this was recorded, and there were wonderful presentations, everything from like how to shuck an oyster to talking about the different opportunities and farmers. She also put out some consumer guides, and they developed recipe cards. We created a video series about Meet the Farmer, and I'll actually throw the link to the video in the chat because one of the videos we have is about Maida, who's the next speaker. Other barriers that we see is that the permitting process is not straightforward. In fact, it's pretty darn confusing. And so Hannah Wilson is an Alaska Sea Grant Fellow that's been working at NOAA to help farmers with this permitting. There's a big release that's going to happen on Tuesday. We have a printed version of the permitting guide, and then the whole thing is also available online on a website. And the website breaks down all the pieces, piece by piece, with little flow charts and all the links to the different applications that an individual might need. The PDF document will be available at the Alaska Sea Grant bookstore for free, and also sort of in print form helps guide people through the process. I think the webpage is going to be the place that everybody looks though. Training, an essential piece, and we've been doing training for a while now. Here's an example of a training event that we hosted in person, and much of this has also moved online. There's been incredible demand for Miraculture training, and so this is just showing you the increase from 2020 to 2021. We have hosted with other partners, AFDF, the Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation, and Alaska Sea Grant have partnered on many of these, and through a combination of webinars. And then we have even hosted some smaller 2-day workshops with smaller groups of people. Those are hands-on opportunities. And we're really looking forward to COVID being over and being able to host many more of these in-person workshops. As you can see, the number of applications that we receive for these trainings are well exceed the number that we've been able to serve yet, but we look forward to offering more of these trainings to help new people get into this industry in the future. Alaska Sea Grant hosts the Alaska Seafood School, and this is primarily targeting processors and people in the industry. And the kind of classes that we offer here are largely focused on issues of product safety. So for example, we teach the hazard analysis and critical control point class, the HACCP class, which is required of anybody that's going to produce any food products. It's a national class, and because of COVID, we've actually even gotten permission. We now offer this completely online. It's a 2-day program, and one of the days individuals do it on their own. And then the second day is an all-day Zoom event that's interactive. We also offer sanitation control procedures workshops, a smoked seafood school, And then the Alaska Seafood Processing Leadership Institute, ASPLE, is a program that we offer in person and engaging directly with the seafood processing industry, which includes certainly wild caught, but an emerging number of individuals in this industry are getting into mariculture too. So Sam mentioned that Exxon Valdez Oil Spill Trustee Council was just recently announced funding for a large number of, a large amount of funding for 3 different mariculture research projects. The total amount that they recommended for funding was over $32 million, and these are 10-year projects. And so this is really going to help this industry to address many of the different issues that are needed to support the growth of the industry in the future. One of these projects, Sam mentioned a little bit, this project is the biggest one of the bunch. It's called we call it Mariculture Recon. It's Mariculture for restoration in the Oil Spill Trustee Council spill area. And so the spill area is primarily in South Central, but I guess from Fish and Game's point of view, it would be South Central and westward. It includes Kodiak, Kachemak Bay, and Prince William Sound as the 3 major growing areas. We're engaging directly with farmers. Farmers are going to be paid participants in the research, and they will be actively engaged with a whole variety of different researchers from a variety of organizations, from NOAA, Prince William Sound Science Center, the University of Alaska Fairbanks is a key player as well, Fish and Game, and so forth and so on. We really envision this as a complete and comprehensive plan to address the different research needs of the industry and to help the industry foresee different challenges that they might encounter in the future. So certainly climate change is one of these. And so the first piece is identifying, how can mariculture exist in this environment? What are the changes that are happening? So just simple things like looking at temperature changes, salinity changes, but also much more intensive work looking at ocean acidification, for example, identifying the carbon dynamics, and understanding potentially there could be an amelioration effect here. So the kelp, growing kelp could in fact help because it is taking up carbon as it's growing. So a variety of other things that we'll be looking at too are interactions with biological communities, and these can be negative or positive actually. So looking at planktonic communities, benthic communities, fish, marine mammals, marine birds, identifying all the different potential interactions there. And then if we do find some negative interactions, then testing different mitigation strategies to ameliorate those interactions. And this information is really important to the managers that regulate these regulate the industry, and we don't necessarily know what these interactions are. So this will be very important to informing management in the future. We'll be looking at economic development, a whole variety of different issues, and then looking at economic feasibility analysis. What does it cost to raise oysters in a hatchery in Alaska? Doing an economic analysis of that. And then, of course, developing new products is going to be essential along the way. And so we're going to be bringing in some additional food products experts to work in Alaska through this project. So we're really excited about these opportunities. So here's my contact information. It's been a pleasure to speak with you. Thanks for your time. And during the break, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was really, really great. And we really appreciate your engagement here. I'm sure there will be some questions on the back end for all of you. Now I'll introduce our final speaker for today, and that's Maida Mesdag. Maida is the owner of Salty Lady Seafood Company, and originally from Portland, Oregon. She ran Catch Fly Photography, a portrait photography business, for a number of years before moving to Juneau. And in 2018, she decided to start something new and opened Salty Lady Seafood Company with her family, a mariculture farm in Bridget Cove that specializes in oysters. When you're hearing about the burgeoning mariculture industry, Salty Lady Seafood is often brought up as an example of just a wonderful business in Southeast Alaska. And we're really lucky to have Maida here today to tell us about their operations and some of this mariculture scene in Southeast Alaska. So thank you so much, and take it away, Maida.
see here. I am going to just go ahead and jump into full screen mode here. Thank you, Ephraim, and thank you, Seattle Chamber, for having us here to share. Can you guys hear me okay? Awesome. Well, like Ephraim said, I own Salty Lady Seafood here in Juneau, and I am from Portland. I was a photographer for about 9 years, and in 2018, I sort of had a wild hair and felt like I needed to do something different, not just for me, but for my kids. We moved here and we were surrounded by mountains and beautiful ocean, lakes, all this stuff. And I was ending up spending my summers on the computer processing. And I felt like the window of opportunity to make a major career shift that would be super impactful to my kids was starting to kind of close as my oldest son was entering middle school. And so I decided to shift gears. And my husband has been involved with a lot of economic development organizations here in town. And it's been identified from, our local government that Mariculture is this great economic opportunity. And so he made the recommendation, and that happened in the spring of 2018. And I just ran with it. And so here I am out at the farm in 2018 in the spring, right before the permits are all due for tideland leases through the state. We ended up looking all over Juneau to figure out where we could get a lease to start a farm. And I knew that having small kids, I wanted to be close, and I didn't want to be crossing, big bodies of water, like coming all the way out here to Excursion Inlet and be subjecting my kids to dangerous situations. And so for us, it really made the most sense if we could get a farm that was on the road system. And so here you can see downtown Juneau. And then we've got the valley here. And then this is out the road. And we are actually 26 miles out the road. We had approached the state to try to figure out where we could get a lease. And I had actually selected the site at Bridget Cove when we pulled out the charts and found out that there was already a permitted farm site there. It hadn't been developed, but it was actually permitted in 2003. And so we approached the leaseholder, and he was super eager to sell us his lease. And what that did was allow us to actually get seed in the water very quickly. So we were able to get seed set in 2018. And started our first set of baby oysters in floating bags. And you can see from this aerial image here, this is Mab Island, and we have 2 long lines of bags. When we started, we had 10 bags split into 30,000 oysters split into 10 bags. So it just allowed us to get some product in the water and, actually start growing oysters and get our water quality done, like all of our water certification started. And at that time, I didn't have any employees. I didn't have a sellable product, but I knew I needed to know more about our growing waters. And so I reached out to Ginny, and Ginny was a huge connection for me. She got me set up with a doctorate student named Courtney, who has since 2018 helped do research at the farm and look at our water. She would study it and take samples and tell us about the phytoplankton so that we knew when our blooms were happening. It gave us opportunities to learn about the harmful algal blooms in our area, specifically Alexandrium, which causes paralytic shellfish poisoning and is toxic to humans. So it was really amazing for us to have that connection. And what it also meant was that I had somebody to go to the farm with in the winter. Like I had a partner to be able to run with me, and I wasn't traveling alone. And that was really great. I loved it. So thank you, Jenny. I know this has been a great opportunity for both of us. And so you can see here our farm site. This is Mab Island. And we have these nice big open entrance and exit on the north and south side. And what that means is that there is incredible flow that comes in and out of our farm. And so we have tons of nutrients that are just pumped in constantly. So as far as timelines go, like I said, in 2018, we applied for a lease transfer. We also set seed and we got our first oysters in the water. And then in 2019, we realized that we needed an additional conditional use permit if we wanted to actually put any structures in at our farm site. Our farm site is one of the smallest in the state. It's an acre in total, but actually our oyster parcel is less than a half an acre, 0.46 acres. And so we have a very tiny footprint to try to grow a product that creates a viable business. So we submitted our paperwork to get our conditional use permit so that we can put in grow-out rafts and actually have a work raft so that we had a structure to work from. Prior to that, we were just working out of my skiff and pulling the oysters on deck, trying to do as much handling as we could with buckets and tubs and sorting with little tray screens. And we knew in order to scale up, we would have to actually get some, critical infrastructure. We completed our water quality testing and got our growing water certification in the fall of 2019. And then 2020, COVID hit. So just as we started to have product that was sellable and ready to hit market in the spring, we ended up with all of the closures with COVID and had to kind of pivot and end up building our website around direct sales. And that was great opportunity for us to actually get all of our website honed in and allow people to order online and generate good partnerships and relationships with some local businesses in our community to help distribute our products. So we were able to work with Forbidden Peak Brewery here in town. We worked with Panhandle Produce and Alaska Probiotics and Amalga Distillery, and they would allow us once a week to drop off coolers with all of our retail orders so that individuals could buy directly from us and pick up our product, when it was super fresh and feel that direct connection with us at a time where people weren't really going to restaurants as much and we're spending a lot more time hunkered down. So that was a great chance for Juneau to kind of, support a local business, and for me to have my business kind of have an opportunity to generate sales without those wholesale buyers that we had initially counted on. When we had actually applied for our lease transfer, I also applied for a new lease at a farm site that is really close to town. I knew that I had this tiny parcel that I was working with out at Bridget Cove. So we applied for a secondary site at the same time. And in spring of 2020, DNR decided to issue us our lease at Spoon Island, but it was appealed. So I am still in appeals. That fall, we homeschooled our kids. I drug them out to the farm every week and they helped us harvest. And we spent a lot of time planning for 2021 and figuring out what that would look like. 2021, we were able to build our big work raft. That allowed us to have some great infrastructure to work from. It gave us a covered work surface. It allowed us to use suspended culture so that we weren't just doing a floating bag system, which is all on the surface. Using a suspended culture, a suspended system allows you to stack trays and utilize the whole water column, which we needed with a site this small if we were going to be able to grow enough product to have a viable business. So we built out our second work raft, our big work raft, and we built out 2 grow-out rafts as well as our processing facility. And that was really huge for us. It was a really big step up. And we also got our first set of real employees. And actually, you can see here, Muriel is an employee that was connected with me through the research that we've been doing out at the farm. We got grant funds and we're able to do a project where we study the phytoplankton and we're studying the oyster meat so that we can learn more about what it looks like. If we wanted to find a quantitative measurement for looking at number of cells in the water and how that translates to toxicity in our oyster meat from harmful algal blooms. So Muriel works for me, and she's also a marine biologist and studying kelp, getting started on hopefully doing her doctorate program here in Juneau this winter. And she comes out and works for me and does all of the water testing at our farm and has continued on that research project, which has been really huge. And we also got a full-time processor that works in town and does all of our processing and deliveries and packs our wholesale orders, cleans our product, and works in our processing facility. And she's not pictured here, but she's also been really huge. I've mentioned, of course, Ginny and her involvement. This here is just a handful of images. I feel like this is hard to see. I'm going to minimize. There's Elin. So this is the ladies coming out to the farm, sampling water. They do dive projects. They look at sediment. They have actually come out and helped dive. If we have like a storm and we lose gear or equipment on the bottom, they come out with dive gear and they help retrieve gear. And it's just been really fun and amazing having this connection with our university and with the research and getting to be involved in these projects. And it's actually kind of become one of our core values, is partnering for research that's critical to helping mariculture industry grow in Alaska. So we've loved having this partnership with them. And in the last year, we've also created this great partnership with Deckhand Dave. So they started selling our oysters at an oyster bar that just opened this spring, and they've been selling exclusively our oysters, which is huge. You can see here in the middle photo, that's Cora, and Cora is also one of my employees. So she actually works at the farm, and she shucks over 50% of our oysters at the oyster bar, which has been really an amazing partnership for us, because it's allowed us to scale up the volume of sales that we've done significantly this summer. And with that said, we had set our goals in 2020 for sales, and we didn't know what that was going to look like with COVID, but thanks to our community, everybody rallied and we were able to meet all of our sales goals just through direct marketing and direct sales from individuals. And so then in 2021, to have this partnership with this wholesale supplier just was like the connection that we needed to really increase our volume, and having all the infrastructure in place really allowed us to do that, which is great. So when we talk about COVID and the impacts really for our farm, the biggest impact that COVID had was, like I mentioned, we had to focus on direct sales, work with our pickup locations, and we delayed build out on our grout rafts and our big work raft due to uncertainty. So we had intended on building everything out in the spring of 2020. And then when we could see that things weren't looking good with COVID, we decided we just need to figure out a bare bones method for handling the volume that we have as it grows. And if we're not doing the sales, then we're not moving the product, and the product continues to grow and it takes up more volume on the site. So we ended up using a buoy system suspended from long lines and a manual hand crank so that we could handle our volume without actually building all that infrastructure out. One of the issues that we have actually had that's been kind of ongoing for us in this state is this Psp testing program that we have. Each of our lots, our harvests, are tested for Psp. It's the harmful algal blooms that I had mentioned earlier that cause people to get paralytic shellfish poisoning. And we pull our product, we send in a sample to the state tests it, we cover all of the time and labor costs of collecting the sample, we cover the shipping, which for me is about $71 a week. And then the state currently covers the test. They run the test for us, and they give us the clearance to sell the product. They say your product is safe, you're good to go, you can test it, or your product is not safe this week, so please return it to the water. And now you need to continue to test for three more consecutive tests, 4 days apart, so that we can ensure that our product is safe again. The trouble that we're currently having is that there is a budget deficit in the state. So they're trying to figure out ways to balance the budget. And there's some critical programs that are been kind of put on the chopping block each year. And one of them is this testing program that we're federally mandated to participate in. And so for us as an industry, what that means is that a farm like mine would have to spend an additional $10,000 in fiscal year 2022 to cover the cost of that sampling. And it's supposed to actually double. The $10,000 is 50% of what it actually costs to run those tests. And then for me in 2023, we're looking at about $20,000 in additional costs. And for a micro scale family farm that's focused on a direct local market, that is a huge amount of money. And I think for a lot of farms that are not massive in scale, it's a big ask, if not impossible. It's really an impossible ask. And I think it would really be problematic for us actually reaching our potential as an industry. So we continue to advocate for the necessity of that program. And if you look at the other farms in the nation, in the US, we have testing programs that are all fully functioning, and just about all of them across the board don't require farms to cover the cost of that federally mandated program. It's considered a matter of public health and safety. And so every other state pretty much monitors the harmful algal blooms in their area, and they'll issue closures for their areas or regions based on what's happening in their waters. And so for us in Alaska, we are very large, but it's a difficult ask to put that on us. And so anyhow, we're continuing to advocate for that. And one of the things that farmers are currently working on and asking is that we actually add DEC as an essential service in the state, because right now, if there were to be a furlough and our state lab were to close, that would mean that none of the farmers in the state could actually get their product to market without that test giving them clearance to sell. So that happened this summer in July, and it was a big scare for everybody because there are harmful blooms that pop up a lot in the summers in Alaska, and we all want to make sure that our product is safe. So to be notified that we might not have the ability to get our product tested meant that I had a tremendous amount of sales on the line, and we were looking at losing just at our farm alone, somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 in sales just because of a furlough. And that is one of those things where we need to look at that as an essential service in the state and figure out how to get that added. So that's what we're working on. This summer, we had the pleasure of hosting Taku with Outdoor Chef Life. I don't know if anybody here is YouTube fans, but Outdoor Chef Life does really cool online videos where he makes delicious food. He is a gourmet chef. He used to be a sushi chef, and now he is doing this YouTube channel. He traveled across Alaska. He came to our farm and he did a featured video where he helped us harvest oysters. He prepared the oysters and we all got to eat them on site. And he made a really fun video about his experience with our farm. And it was unanimously positive. Like, everybody was super excited. Taku has, oh man, I don't know if he has 1 million followers, but he has a lot for us small Juneau folks to be having him out here and joining us. So this video has, I want to say, over 160 or 200,000 views and over 600 comments. And one of the things that seemed to just ring throughout that, or, you know, be a common theme, was that everybody was excited to see our farm and purchase oysters from us. And so we were able to get our out-of-state shipping license and start selling to California. We just sent oysters this week to New Orleans, to an oyster bar there. And we are now at an oyster bar, or a seafood restaurant in Portland, and really trying to work on what eco tours would look like out at our farm. Because as you can see from the comments, people seem excited about coming out and seeing the farm. Path to Prosperity invited me to participate in their program. And so we are working with them on our business plan to develop eco tours out at our farm. And that was actually HB 115 was a bill that was passed in legislation that allowed for eco tours, which is really helpful for us getting this industry, you know, highlighting it nationally and getting people to get excited about mariculture in Alaska, being able to offer farm tours, especially with pent up demand for cruise ships, shore excursions, and the upcoming season. So we're hoping to actually start farm tours out at our farm at Bridget this year, because we don't actually know when we're going to get out of appeal. So this is Spoon Island. This is not where our current developed farm site is, but this is where we filed for a tideland lease in 2018. It has gobs of whale watching boats that pass by. It would be a great chance for folks to come in and see a farm site and see what it would look like to grow, or see what it looks like to grow oysters in Alaska, and learn about our business, learn about why it's important that we are all stewards of our oceans, and you know, have an opportunity to taste our oysters and learn about our community. And so we currently have no idea when we're going to make it out of the appeal process. There's no timeline for the state to decide on appeals. There's like, you know, a loose idea that it might be up to 2 years more, which is actually really difficult if you think about building a business and starting the process in 2018 and still not knowing anything in 2023. And then it takes years to develop a product. And so that's what we currently have in the works for our farm site. As far as the DNR aquatic farm leases go, the agency timeline for review is about a year, with a 10-year term on aquatic farm leases. The renewal from HB 115 that incorporated eco tours as well as a one-time renewal is actually super amazing and helpful that the state was able to get that through, because it allows farms to operate for up to 20 years. Because as you can see, after spending so many years trying to get a farm site, to have to then go through the entire process again after 10 years and have your farm be up for appeal and lose it all is not, it doesn't really provide folks with a sense of security. So anyhow, here is the ladies at the farm this week. This was actually just Tuesday when we had Becca. She's going to be on the left here. She's going to be one of our new researchers that comes out to the farm. And then we have Jordan with Noah, who is going to be taking over this research project that we've been working on for harmful algal blooms. And so they came out to the farm site this week, helped us harvest, trained on water collection and sampling, and got to have a beautiful day on the water in Alaska. It was lovely. Anyhow, that kind of wraps up my time. I think I went a little over, so I'm going to stop now so you guys have a chance for questions.
Thank you so much, Maida. That was awesome. I mean, your story is truly inspiring. It makes me want to start a farm when I get back up home, but not sure I have what it takes. Maybe I'll just call you for a day out on your farm to get my fix. Also, what you mentioned something a little bit about direct to consumer sales in Juneau, and that's something I really think that Alaska has historically not capitalized on or executed on well. It's really exciting to have fresh local seafood available to local residents and visitors. And I think that's also potentially a booming economy that we can grow as well, as direct to consumer sales of high quality Alaskan seafood. If in Alaska, you always have a friend who has some fish for you or so something they caught, but if you want to go buy something at the store, you just go to Fred Meyer's or something, right? But where are you getting fresh local seafood directly from the growers or the catchers? I think that's something we need to think about. Now we can open up to audience questions, and as a reminder, there is no Q&A box today, but please let us know if you have a question in the chat, or you can raise your hand. If I don't see it, Betsy, maybe you can help me. I'll call on you, or Betsy will, and we can ask your questions live. And please remember to unmute yourself if you do get called on. I'll start us off with just a question I was thinking about, in each of your presentations, and what if each or if any of you could identify what you think is the the number one thing holding us back, holding Alaska back, the industry back from getting to that point where everyone says, oh, Alaska can be the Saudi Arabia of kelp, or Alaska can be this booming industry for mariculture by 2030, 2040. What is the limiting factor to getting to that point? Is it seed? Is it access to reliable resources? Is it transportation? I'll just open that up for anybody who wants to take a stab.
Well, I can give you my opinion. I mean, we see it growing. Like I said, it started in '88, and it's always been kind of mom and pop because, it was just boutique sales, small scale, local stuff. I mean, I buy Salty Lady oysters at Super Bear, Ephraim, just so you know. But I think it needs to reach a size, a critical mass. You have economy of scale, and once it gets large enough that processors see that, okay, there's volume there that makes sense for us to run through our plants in the case of kelp or things like that. I think that's what's going to take it off. The other hurdle, of course, is financing, is getting the funds to get it started. There's a pretty slow return on investment. Maida was basically really fast tracked. She's unusual. She got a couple year jump start, I think. And just to be clear, it's the leasing process that takes all that time. Getting the aquatic farm permit from Fish and Game takes a month. But anyway, it needs to reach a critical mass. We need to attract processing capacity due to that volume. And I think that's in the pipeline right now. We're issuing farm permits for 100-acre farms now. There's an oyster permit that's been issued in the Sitka area for a 100-acre oyster farm, and it has its own nursery. So once those things start coming online, I think COVID kind of slowed things down a little bit, but as we get our head above water from that, I think you'll see it take off. We call it westward, but the Alaska Peninsula out to the Aleutians, there's tremendous interest out there, and a lot less user conflicts, I would say, in those areas. But there's also more environmental challenges out there. They have big winters. So anyway, I'm really excited. Maybe somebody else has some other opinions on this.
Yeah, I know I am a mom and pop, like small scale micro farm selling the boutique oysters, but just from my experience of the fact that we applied for a lease in 2018 and I have no idea when or if I'm going to get it. And it was on the opposite side of an island of town. It is close to town, but it had 3 property owners that decided they wanted a city park and a breakwater, which doesn't happen on islands in Juneau. So right now, like having that issue, if anybody can appeal, they could write a comment at the public comment period, and it could say Santa Claus is real. And then they can file an appeal and say the Easter Bunny is real. It doesn't have to do with anything, but if they file an appeal and if they get that formal process, or if they get into that formal process, you're suddenly sucked into the abyss with all the mines and all the other processes. So it really, it creates this potential for anybody to halt, any leasing of a farm site in the state, which I think is problematic without an actual timeline for when that can stop. And then the second thing that I have noticed that's also challenging is it's difficult to get gear and equipment in. It costs a lot of money. And then you get your product in the water. And in order to have a profitable business, you have to sell your product at a rate that allows you to make money. But then when it comes time to actually ship to a global market, we are so far away that it is incredibly expensive to get your product out of Alaska. And so finding a way to compete with Washington and, all the other markets, Ireland, Scotland, whatever, for us, it's actually really expensive. And in order to get good rates, you have to have a business that's established. And so trying to find a way for us as a state to get our product moved in a cost-effective manner. And not just that, but getting our supplies up here in a cost-effective manner. Currently, we have to pay all the shipping charges. The equipment comes from the East Coast of Canada all the way down to Seattle, and then all the way back up to Alaska. We pay for that. And then when it's time to move the product, we pay for that too, or our buyers pay for that. And we want to compete. We want to hit a global market. And so I think we might need to find some solutions as a state for how we can get our product out in high volumes to reach our goals.
Thank you, Maida and Sam. Ginny, I don't know if you have anything to add there.
Yeah, I think that those are the challenges. I think capital and, the addressing some of these sort of permitting hurdles. We've made great strides, and I think there are efforts in both these areas. And, quite honestly, I think the Economic Development Authority it has new initiatives out there, and we have ideas how to go after some of that money to help address some of these challenges.
Thank you. And I'm seeing we have a couple questions here. I'll call on David first, and then Brett to ask your questions live in that order. So David. We're not hearing you, David, or I'm not. So maybe we'll go to Brett first, and then David, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I just thanks for the great presentations. I thought it was really educational, and I just really appreciate Sam, Ginny, and Maida's. It was really well done from like kind of the top and where you're going on the coordinating to actually at a farm. And I think my question is really on the business to business relationship between Alaska and Washington. But I think to Maida's point, and I know a lot of this is done, and I'm going to be with a lot of you probably on a 4-hour Zoom on the Alaska Mariculture Alliance meeting later today. But the coordination that's needed between states to understand the permitting issues seems to be something that just keeps coming up, right? This NIMBYism of for lack of a better term, wealthy landowners who want to go eat oysters at an oyster bar but don't want to look at it, right? Or don't want to hear about gooey duck production in their front door backyard. And Washington State is going, it has been and is certainly going through its enormous complexities there. And that's just a whole nother topic. But states and stakeholders just sharing information about what's to come or what is happening in each state and how to overcome them, I think is going to be, from what I limited understanding, seems to be just a recurring theme. But my question was around seed, and something I've heard from folks in Washington, like Taylor and whatnot, of just sort of that business relationship of providing seed, as we were talking about, isn't available and grown in Alaska. What is that relationship between Alaska growers and seed providers in Washington or in other states? Obviously Alaska wants to grow that capacity, but what is it now and where is that going, in the next couple of years?
Well, I'll jump in real quick and answer a piece of that. We have pretty stringent criteria on what seed we're allowed to import into Alaska. So just to back up a little bit, oysters don't grow naturally in Alaska. It's too cold for them to reproduce. So we have to get our seed from artificially produced seed or from out of state. There's only three aquatic organisms are allowed to be imported live into Alaska, and oysters for aquaculture is one of them. The other two are tropical, aquarium fish for pet shops, and the third one is weather vane scallops that originated in Alaska, were taken outside to be spawned, and their progeny can be brought back in, but they have to meet pathology requirements. It's a disease issue that we're very concerned about. So that's the backstory to that bottleneck. So in the 90s, the state of Alaska invested in the Aleutic Pride shellfish hatchery. They built that hatchery with the intention of being the seed source for Americulture in Alaska. It was built by what we call the FRED division, Fisheries Rehabilitation, Enhancement, and Development. It's about the same time that place was completed, FRED was dissolved and absorbed by a commercial fisheries division and no longer funded. So it's been fits and starts. It's legal for people to produce their own seed in Alaska. We have hatcheries in Alaska that can produce oyster seed, but it's very expensive because they have to heat the water for a long period of time to condition the oysters. It's a double-edged sword, because one thing that gives Alaska an advantage in the oyster market is that we can sell oysters in the summer as long as there's no PSP issues, because they don't get into spawning condition. And in other areas, they're not as palatable in the summer because they get real spawny, high glycogen content and gametes. So we have a little bit of an advantage in the market niche there in the summertime because of that. But the converse side of it is that we have to get our seed from outside. Long story short, there's very few places that are certified to import seed into Alaska. It's kind of an onerous process. And we, like I said earlier, we don't, to date, haven't had the volume needed to make it worthwhile for more people to go through that process. And it comes back to economy of scale.
I'm not sure if Maida or Ginny, if you have anything to add. Or, okay.
I was going to add real quick. So from the farmer's perspective, I know when I want to get seed, I have like 4 options for places to order from. And so one of those locations is in Washington. And then we've got, I think, 2 up in Ketchimek Bay area and 1 in Prince of Wales with Eric Wyatt, who you saw in some of Ginny's slides. He has the Flepsy there. I'd say the greatest challenge with that is that Washington really will only sell you very, very, very small baby oysters, which means that you have to have specialized gear to keep them on your site. Otherwise, they'll just sift through your bags or so you can see in the background of my photo here, I've got a certain gauge mesh. And if I was to buy itty bitty tiny oysters, they would just all fall out. And so when we purchase our seed, our best option is actually to get it from either Ketchimek or Prince of Wales. And Prince of Wales has the biggest option for seed, but it's actually really challenging to get from Prince of Wales to our site. And so with that said, I'd say when I look at buying, I have 4 options. One of them really sells the size that I need. So I am very limited. Ketchimek does, I don't want to say that they don't have large seed available. They do, but it's not always readily available. So I don't know if that kind of also clarifies what it looks like as a buyer.
Does the mesh size of your bags matter for any type of permitting, or just like, is that okay? Thank you.
Nope. But you want a larger mesh because the finer your mesh is, the more biofouling and the less nutrient flow that you get. So when you have a product that's more market ready growing in your bags, you need good flow. But when you have a baby, you also need it to stay on your farm site. So it's a balance. Plus, the larger the oysters that you're able to get for seed on your site, the less time you have to spend handling them. And the more market ready, the quicker they'll be market ready. So it costs less to actually produce a market ready oyster when you're able to get larger seed, but it costs more to ship that seed to your site because it takes higher volume and comes in, bigger boxes. So sending it on Alaska Airlines is really expensive, and it's all a balancing act.
What a lot of people do in Alaska, well, a few people do in Alaska, is they're not actually hatcheries. They're what we would call a nursery. Mm-hmm. So they can, or a setting facility, they can buy larval oysters from out of state, from a certified provider, and then they set those, or they buy very small spat and put them in a nursery. We mentioned Flepsy earlier. So it's a nursery system, and that's made and named a few places that they're basically doing that. So she's buying from nurseries in Alaska. They're not actually doing the spawning here. And to actually do the spawning, the propagation, that requires a hatchery permit, which is a little bit different animal. But yeah, it comes back to volume. So these very large scale ones I was mentioning, the 100-acre plus farm, their business models have vertical integration built into it. So they're going to produce their own seed. And that's what the big producers down in Washington do as well.
Thank you all. And David, it sounded like you said your audio was.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Okay. One thing I noticed about this meeting here is that it seems there's a bit of serendipity in key players contacting each other. And one thing I noticed is in our breakout room, we shared our emails, but when I checked with Betsy, the rest of you, when this event is over, unless the information is published on the presentation, you're going to just disappear. So I was wondering if you could direct me to what would be the agencies or associations where this sort of activity coalesces like you do?
afdf.org.
Okay, AFDF.
Yes, that's the Alaska Fisheries Development Foundation. So
Okay.
Julie Decker is, I would say, she's the serendipitous force that brought us all together. I kind of jokingly refer to her as the matriarch of Mariculture in Alaska. She's been the driving force behind making this happen. And she's the executive director of AFDF.
Okay.
Yeah, and AFDF sort of helped run the governor's Mariculture task force. Julie was the chair, and the Alaska Americulture Alliance, whose first meeting is this afternoon, and this is open to anybody who would like to join, is this place where people are coming together, and there are more and more people joining and opportunities. So yeah, so things are gelling here. And you're right, there's a lot of serendipity, but also a lot of ways to connect. And Alaska really is a small place when you come right down to it.
And one quick follow-up question. Do you think that you're trying to attract capital for development?
Absolutely. That's really needed. And, from a state's perspective, some of the legislation that's underway is to improve we have a revolving loan fund for Miraculture. It's very small scale, but we're trying to improve on that. There's some agricultural funds available, but aquatic farming, it's relatively new and it's relatively high risk. So a traditional bank, they're really not interested. You need an ag bank type setup to support it, because it is agriculture. It's just in the water, so it's aquaculture.
Would Julie Decker and her association, would she have a centralized list of financing information about Alaska in this industry, or is it elsewhere?
Yeah, I think she might actually. And actually, if you look at the report to the governor, I think I had a picture of it. Jeannie also had a picture of it in the appendices. There's a lot of pieces of that too. Maybe not, click and shoot type setup, but at least it gets you in the right direction.
Okay. And thank you for answering my questions.
We're almost at time here, and I might get in trouble, but I see one more hand raised. So Michael Irving, if you want to ask your question before we close out here.
I guess maybe not a question, but I'd agree with Sam. It's funding right now, and probably the bureaucracy of the permitting process.
Leasing.
Leasing, not ADF and G at all, Sam. but some, like the Mariculture revolving loan fund is good, but in reality, I had a solar flubsy design for the farm, and it's well over $100,000. I mean, we just don't have the scale to do it yet.
Well, thank you, everybody. And I'm going to turn it over to Betsy here before we hit the 30-minute mark. And I just want to say it was truly a pleasure and an honor to host this event. And like Brett alluded to earlier, the way this was structured kind of really flowed nicely and was enlightening even to somebody who, like me, I consider myself engaged in the mariculture industry, but this still was, I learned a lot. So thank you very much. And Betsy, it's all you.
Thank you so much. And just once again, want to thank our fantastic speakers for today, Maida, Sam, Dr. Eckert, and of course, our trusty MC and chair, Ephraim, for leading us through today's discussion. Really enjoyed it and was very informative. And also want to once again thank our sponsor, Alaska Airlines. We could not do these programs without their help. So thank you, Scott, and thank you, Alaska Airlines. All right, so our next program is going to be in January 7th. We're going to be joined by our friend Neil Freed to talk about 2022's economic forecast. You know Neil, you love him, please sign up. As of now, we're still planning to do in person, I'll say it, so plan accordingly, and if anything changes, I will let you know, but hopefully we'll see you all in person in January for our next forum. And I will send out a recording of today's session as well as some resources from our speakers today as well. So once again, thank you for coming. Have a great Thursday, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.